What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas, coming to you live from Buffalo, New York, bringing you another edition of the TTSP podcast hosted by yours truly, bringing you the latest news in sports, NFL, mixed martial arts, MLB. We got the baseball season coming up. I'm going to be releasing my fantasy baseball rankings for each position. I'm working on those, doing my due diligence, but I am really soaking up this 2017 NFL Draft. Obviously, today is the scouting combine. You got a bunch of interesting storylines heading into the scouting combine. But if I'm gonna talk about the Buffalo Bills, lately I've been talking about a lot of negatives in the world of the Buffalo Bills at One Bills Drive. The fact that they have a lot of cap problems, the fact that they have a running back that's their best player on their roster, reaching towards the end of his prime, that I would have at least considered shopping. I would have shopped him, taken a look and seen what we could have got for him, especially with this rich 2017 running back draft class that, all the way down the line, you have very good running backs in this 2017 draft. It was announced recently that Kyle Williams will be back. While most are excited, in terms of their cap space, it's a bad move. And in terms of the longevity of this team, it's not necessarily a good move financially. But in terms of in the locker room, teaching a 4-3 defense to young guys like Shaq Lawson and being that veteran guy, I get it in that regard, but he's making way too much money. I thought it was time for them to part ways with him and say thank you and be classy about it, but it's a business, and I just thought it would be better for their cap situation, which is not a good one. I talked about that extensively on the Thomas Take Sports podcast at Buffalo Bills 2017, the salary cap. If you want to check that out, that's on YouTube as well, on the Thomas Take Sports podcast channel. But as I said, I've talked about a lot of negatives with the Buffalo Bills. I want to talk about some positives, some things that I'm seeing that I do like so far, and it all stems from the coaching staff, from Sean McDermott to Rick Dennison to Leslie Frazier. I like all three of these guys. I have a very good feeling about the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and the defensive coordinator. Leslie Frazier, a former head coach for the Vikings, he did some decent things with the defenses there. Rick Dennison has worked in Denver for quite some time. He's had some stops along the way. He's worked with some really good quarterbacks. Sean McDermott has a attitude that I really like. It's a all business attitude. He's not going to be boastful or bashful or braggadocious. He's all business. He takes this very seriously. I can tell just by the two press conferences that they had, one of which was his introductory press conference where he didn't say the same old that most coaches say. He went at the media. He was on the attack to the media rather than the media being on the attack to him. I liked what he had to say about Tyrod as far as the answer he gave. I liked that he didn't talk about just Tyrod. I liked that he talked about the other options that are out there, the Cardale Jones option that's currently on their roster. That interests me. The fact that he was an open book, but he was a business-like open book. He wasn't just bland. He wasn't immature about it. Very mature guy. Very by the book, so to speak, and I like that about him. It shows more, I guess, when you had a coach like Rex Ryan who had the braggadocious, brash, bravado type behavior and attitude that he exhibited. Sometimes, and that's what most people like about Rex, myself included when he was here, but that was also his downfall. And now they have a coach that seems to be, so far at least in my eyes, seems to be a real professional. And you have all these coaches in the NFL, Andy Reid, Ron Rivera, guys that have been in this league for quite some time, especially Andy Reid and Ron Rivera. Both of them have been in the league for quite some time, I should say, saying nothing but good things. Andy Reid saying, I'm a fan. Ron Rivera saying he knew that he was going to get an opportunity. He knew that he'd be the one coach on his staff that would get a head coaching job. And Doug Peterson of the Philadelphia Eagles, the head coach, it was reported, too, that it came down to Sean McDermott and Doug Peterson for that head coaching job when the Eagles fired Chip Kelly. They thought about bringing Sean McDermott in as a defensive guy, and what happened was the fact that they knew that they needed to get a quarterback. So Doug Peterson came in being a former backup in the NFL. They went with Carson Wentz. They made that trade, and it turned out to be better. They wanted to go in an offensive direction rather than a defensive direction, and I feel like McDermott wouldn't have fit there. He would have fit there, but the pieces fall into place for a reason, and I think him in Buffalo will be a better fit for him. Offensively, there's question marks. Obviously, as I said, you have LaShawn McCoy, who isn't, past his prime, but he's not, he's reaching that point. He's getting there. He's sooner to past his prime than, sooner to being in his prime, sooner to reaching his prime. His prime, he's in the middle of it. He's not past it. He's not entering it. He's right smack dab in the middle, but I'd say like on a 100% scale, it would be McCoy is probably 60%, there so far. He's halfway there. And I thought it made sense for them to try and shop him and see what they could get while they have many holes on the defensive side of the ball, major holes in their secondary, that they would, use those picks to tackle those issues. But they didn't. They want McCoy for the, foreseeable future, as they should, as I understand that. He's a playmaking player, a offensive, elusive player that creates opportunity for your offense to score points, which they don't have many of those guys. So that being said, I'm excited for the future of this team, of the coaching staff. I hope that they give this coaching staff a chance that is worth their time, rather than bringing in a coach that is just here for 2 years and then fired the next. This Rick Dennison guy is somebody that I have really looked into a lot. Coached many different, had many different roles, I should say, with the Denver Broncos. He was an offensive assistant in 95, special teams coach in 97 to 2000, offensive line coach from 2001 to 2005, coordinator for 06 to 08, offensive line coach again, worked in Houston in 10 to 13. The biggest one was the quarterbacks coach in 2014 with Baltimore, and then the offensive coordinator for the Broncos in 2015 and 2016. So he's worked with Denver quite a lot. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion. He's a 6-time AFC champion as a player and a coach. And he's a guy that I'm excited to see what he can do. There's experience on the staff, and that is something that hasn't really been seen in recent regimes, especially with Doug Marrone. He brings in Nate Hackett. Mike Pettin had some experience, but Mike Pettin was for the lack of a better term, not a good head coach with the Cleveland Browns. It's kind of a bad situation, but he got fired. Nate Hackett is one of the worst offensive coordinators in the NFL. I'm shocked that he is an offensive coordinator again, and I'm shocked that Marrone is an NFL head coach again. But that's on Jacksonville. That's not on my team. So I'm happy that they're on Jacksonville and not on Buffalo. Then you got Leslie Frazier. In terms of experience, this guy was on the 85 Bears team, winning 2 Super Bowls. And this is a guy that I'm really excited that they brought in. When I heard that he was linked to the Bills, I thought to myself, this is an interesting scenario. A guy that is a former player, longtime coach, defensive backs coach, defensive coordinator, bounced around, coached in Tampa and Baltimore, was a secondary coach. So the wealth of experience that these guys have, the common thread between Frazier and McDermott is the fact that they spent time together in the late 90s, early 2000s with the Philadelphia Eagles. So that'll be very interesting. Those defenses were legit. The secondary was insane. They had Brian Dawkins, Troy Vincent. Those were 2 solid safeties. they know what they need. They know what they need to look at to bring in to fit this 4-3 scheme. You need guys that can cover. You need guys that can hit hard and be as physical on an offense as possible. You need athletes at the linebacker position. You look at who Carolina had, Thomas Davis, Luke Kuechly, two guys that are very athletic, probably the two most athletic linebackers in the NFL. And I'm talking about running sideline to sideline, covering tight ends, covering receivers if need be, and getting through the offensive line on blitzes. And they could do everything, both of them. And Thomas Davis most notably played through injury, and Luke Kuechly has been one of the best linebackers in the league since he was drafted a few years back. So it's going to be very interesting. They have young talent. They have Shaq Lawson. They have Reggie Ragland. They have guys that are young and up and coming to start building this defense around. Shaq Lawson had the 8 games that he missed. Reggie Ragland had the whole season that he missed. But there is a lot to look forward to. These guys will hopefully have young careers if put in the right, or long careers, I should say. They have young careers. They're young in their career. Hopefully they have long careers, I should say. And I'm excited to see what McDermott brings to the table as far as defensively. Stephon Gilmore is as good as gone. That could really dictate what the Buffalo Bills do with the first round pick that they have. I'm not going to speculate on that. I want to save that for my 32 teams, 32 picks, 32 days. I want to speculate. I don't want to speculate on that, but that could determine what they do. Whether they bring back Robert Woods or not could determine what they do in the first round. It should be very interesting as the weeks get closer to the NFL draft. How will Sean McDermott put his fingerprints on this team? I think he's been waiting for this opportunity to be a head coach in the National Football League for quite some time, and it's an opportunity that will be definitely not taken advantage of. He's not going to waste his time really reshaping this defense, and he's given straightforward, honest answers while providing some positives that are already on their team. Cardale Jones is an athletic specimen. He can throw the ball as well as any quarterback, one of the strongest arms in the NFL. They didn't call him 12 gauge for nothing. But he's just so raw as a prospect. His time on the NFL field so far has not looked that good. Only in preseason action against third stringers in the final week of the preseason. So if he didn't look good in New York, in New Jersey, I should say, what would make the Bills think that he'd be the franchise guy? They might not have a choice. If they can't get one of these quarterbacks in the draft, if they don't re-sign Tyrod Taylor, Cardale Jones could very well be their starting quarterback in 2017. It's not the best circumstance, but in terms of their cap, in terms of putting a guy out there that actually has some talent that just needs playing time in order to get better, it could be a real situation that we see come to fruition in the coming weeks. So that was my Buffalo Bills positive so far of 2017 for the Buffalo Bills. The 2017 offseason, I find positive in experience. This Buffalo Bills head coaching staff has experience. Sean McDermott entering his 19th year in the league, or 20th year in the league, I believe. Leslie Frazier is like 23rd, 24th year. Dennison is 23rd, 24th year. It'll be very interesting. These guys have been in the league for quite some time. I might have messed that part up. I think it was the opposite way. But you get the point. Three guys, I should say, that are experienced NFL head coaches, and I think they're going to put their best foot forward in Buffalo. Hopefully, Doug Whaley makes this right and finally puts together a draft that the Bills can hang their hat on. Thank you, guys. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was part 2 of the Thomas Take today. March 2nd, 2017. If you didn't tune in to part 1, I gave my take on what the Chicago Bears will do third overall selection in the 2017 NFL Draft. Take care.